Most people think danger announces itself. They believe attacks are loud, chaotic, impossible to miss. But the most lethal animal encounters begin in silence. No warning, no movement, no second chance. In these stories, the water never changed, until it was already too late. Story 1. Australia. The coastline of Western Australia looks endless when you stand on it before sunrise. Long stretches of empty sand, cold wind coming off the Indian Ocean, and water so dark it feels bottomless. For decades, surfers and divers came here chasing isolation, believing distance meant safety. That belief would slowly unravel for many of them. In the early 2000s, this region experienced a sudden rise in fatal shark encounters that shocked even seasoned marine researchers. The waters had always belonged to sharks, but something changed. Migrating whale populations increased, seal colonies expanded, and with them came apex predators that followed ancient routes older than any map. One of the victims was a solo diver exploring a reef system several kilometers offshore. He had chosen the area precisely because it was quiet and untouched. Visibility that morning was poor, the water heavy with suspended sand after a night of rough currents. Below the surface, light faded quickly, turning the ocean into a muted blue void. What investigators later reconstructed came from fragments. The diver's equipment was found drifting hours later. His float line showed a clean, powerful cut, not frayed or tangled. Marine biologists who examined the marks concluded that only a large, predatory shark could have caused such damage. The strike itself was believed to have been sudden and catastrophic, leaving no opportunity for escape. This was not an isolated case. Along the Queensland coast, popular beaches that had operated safely for decades began reporting encounters closer to shore. Bull sharks, known for their aggression and ability to survive in shallow and even freshwater environments, were being sighted in areas previously considered low risk. Warmer ocean temperatures pushed prey species closer to beaches, and sharks followed. One incident involved a swimmer who entered the water during calm afternoon conditions. There were no warning signs, no visible disturbances. Lifeguards reported nothing unusual. The attack occurred less than 50 meters from shore. Witnesses later described the water changing color almost instantly, followed by frantic movement as rescue teams rushed in. Experts emphasized that these sharks were not hunting humans. The attacks were attributed to mistaken identity, territorial behavior, and environmental pressure. But explanations offered little comfort to coastal communities watching their sense of security dissolve. Authorities responded with increased drone surveillance, acoustic tagging programs, and public warnings. Despite these efforts, the unpredictability of the ocean remained. Sharks do not follow schedules. They do not recognize boundaries drawn on charts. They move according to instinct shaped by millions of years. In the years that followed, Australia became the global focal point of discussions around shark conservation versus human safety. Each new incident reignited debate. Should beaches be closed? Should sharks be culled? Or was humanity simply encroaching too far into a world that was never meant to be controlled? For those directly affected, these questions came too late. The ocean they loved became the place where everything changed. What once represented freedom and escape now carried a silent warning beneath the surface. In Australia, the water still looks calm from above. Tourists still arrive. Surfers still paddle out at dawn. But beneath that calm surface, the balance between predator and prey continues to shift, unseen and unforgiving. Story 2. Australia, Queensland and New South Wales coast. The eastern coastline of Australia is far more crowded than the west. Long beaches stretch past coastal towns, tourist resorts, and fishing communities that have existed for generations. Here, the ocean is part of daily life. People grow up swimming in it, working on it, trusting it. That trust was tested repeatedly as a series of shark encounters unfolded over the years. Unlike the sudden, violent encounters offshore, many of the incidents along this coast happened in shallow water, areas where families swam, where children learned to surf, where fishermen cleaned their catch at the edge of the tide. One of the most studied cases occurred near a river mouth in Queensland. These locations are known hotspots for bull sharks. Fresh water flowing into the sea attracts fish, and with them come predators adapted to low visibility and confined spaces. The water there is often murky, stirred constantly by tides and sediment. On the day of the incident, conditions were deceptively calm. No storms, no rough currents. Locals later said the water looked perfect. The victim entered the ocean alone, staying close to shore. What happened next unfolded in seconds. Witnesses described a sudden surge beneath the surface, followed by violent movement. The attack was brief but devastating. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but the damage was already severe. Marine experts later confirmed that the bite pattern and force were consistent with a large bull shark defending territory rather than actively hunting. This detail mattered. Bull sharks are known for aggressive behavior, especially in areas where they feel confined. River mouths, estuaries, and coastal inlets are not neutral zones, they are feeding corridors. The shark did not wander into human space. Humans had entered the shark's domain. Further south in New South Wales, another incident drew national attention. This time, the victim was a surfer. The ocean was busy that morning, with multiple surfers sharing the break. Sharks had been spotted in the region before, but no warnings were issued. Drone patrols had ended earlier that week due to equipment maintenance. The strike occurred from below. The board showed deep puncture marks, widely spaced, indicating a large predator. The surfer survived due to immediate assistance from others in the water, but the psychological impact lingered long after physical recovery. Researchers analyzing the surge in encounters pointed to multiple overlapping factors. Rising sea temperatures altered migration routes. Overfishing reduced natural prey in deeper waters. Coastal development disrupted ecosystems that once kept predators at a distance. Sharks were adapting. Humans were not. Despite public fear, scientists emphasized that Australia's shark population remained relatively stable. What had changed was proximity. Encounters increased not because sharks became more aggressive, but because paths crossed more often. Every incident left a mark on the community. Beaches closed temporarily. Warning signs multiplied. Parents hesitated. Tourists asked questions no one could answer with certainty. The ocean along Australia's east coast remains beautiful, inviting, and dangerous in ways that cannot be fully predicted. For generations, people believed familiarity meant safety. These events proved that the sea remembers its own rules, regardless of who steps into it. Story 3. India, Sundarbans, mangrove forest. The Sundarbans is not a place people accidentally wander into. It is a vast, tangled maze of mangrove forests stretching across India and Bangladesh, where rivers split endlessly and land dissolves into water. Here, the forest breathes with the tide. Villages exist only by constant negotiation with nature, and the dominant presence is the Bengal tiger. Unlike most tigers, the Sundarban's population is adapted to water. They swim long distances, cross wide channels, and hunt in terrain where visibility is poor and escape routes are limited. The forest itself works with them. Mud muffles sound. Dense roots hide movement. The tiger is rarely seen until it chooses to be. One of the most documented fatal encounters occurred during the honey collection season. Local workers enter the forest in small groups, wearing masks on the back of their heads in a long-standing attempt to confuse tigers that stalk from behind. The practice had reduced attacks in previous years, but it was never a guarantee. On that day, the group moved deeper than usual. The tides were low, exposing long stretches of mudflat. They believed this made the area safer. It did not. Tigers in the Sundarbans often patrol these zones precisely because movement is slower there. The attack happened without warning. There was no sound, no visible movement beforehand. The tiger emerged from the mangroves at close range, striking with speed and force that left no opportunity for escape. By the time others reacted, it was already gone, dragging its victim into the dense undergrowth where rescue was impossible. Search teams later found clear signs of territorial behavior rather than hunger. The tiger had not been desperate. It had been enforcing boundaries. Another incident occurred years later involving a fisherman traveling alone along a narrow channel. His boat drifted too close to the shoreline during high tide. Mangrove branches hung low, forming natural cover. When he reached out to push away from the bank, the tiger lunged from the vegetation directly onto the boat. This attack ended differently. The fisherman survived, but only because the unstable footing caused the tiger to slip back into the water. The injury pattern suggested a defensive strike, not a feeding attempt. Experts later explained that tigers in the Sundarbans are under constant pressure. Human activity fragments their territory. Encounters increase when space shrinks. What makes these cases especially disturbing is their predictability. Authorities know the danger zones, villagers know the seasons. Yet economic survival forces people back into the forest year after year. Every trip carries calculated risk. The Sundarbans does not offer safety warnings or second chances. It operates on ancient instincts. The tiger is not a monster here. It is a consequence, a reminder that in some places humans remain guests, never owners. Story 4. Australia, Northern Territory. Saltwater crocodile incident. Northern Australia is one of the few places on Earth where prehistoric dominance never truly ended. The saltwater crocodile, the largest living reptile, controls rivers, estuaries, and coastal wetlands with absolute authority. Locals grow up knowing this, but familiarity does not equal safety. The incident occurred in a remote section of the Northern Territory during the late dry season. Water levels were low, concentrating fish and wildlife into narrow channels. This also concentrates crocodiles. Rangers had posted warnings, but the area was not officially closed. A group of seasonal workers had set up camp several kilometers from the nearest road. They relied on satellite communication and limited supplies. The river nearby appeared calm, shallow in places and free of visible movement. This illusion of stillness is a known trait of crocodile territory. The victim entered the water briefly to rinse equipment. Witnesses later described the surface as glassy with no ripples or disturbances. The crocodile had been submerged, positioned downstream using the current to remain undetected. The attack was instantaneous. There was no thrashing or prolonged struggle visible from shore. The crocodile seized and submerged its target in one fluid motion. By the time others reached the waterline, there was nothing left to intervene with. Recovery efforts began days later. Tracks in the mud indicated a dominant male, likely over 4 meters in length. Bite patterns and drag marks confirmed a textbook ambush predation, not a defensive response. Another documented case from the same region involved a tourist couple ignoring established safety zones. They stopped their vehicle near a river crossing to take photographs. The water appeared shallow, barely reaching ankle height near the bank. The crocodile was waiting at the crossing point. These locations act as natural funnels for prey. When the individual stepped closer for a better angle, the crocodile launched forward with explosive speed, covering several meters in less than a second. Survival in this case was due entirely to distance. The crocodile failed to secure a full grip and retreated immediately, a behavior observed when an attack does not succeed instantly. Injuries were severe but not fatal. Experts emphasize that saltwater crocodiles are not aggressive in the human sense. They are precise. They choose locations based on efficiency, not opportunity. Once a pattern forms, the animal will return to the same spot repeatedly. Northern Australia remains one of the few regions where humans must adapt entirely to apex predators rather than control them. These rivers are not recreational spaces. They are hunting grounds. Every warning sign exists for a reason. Every quiet shoreline hides potential movement beneath the surface. In crocodile territory, the danger is not what you see. It is what you do not. Story 5. India. Sundarbans. Bengal tiger attack. The Sundarbans is not a forest in the traditional sense. It is a shifting maze of mangroves, mudflats, and tidal rivers where land disappears and reforms constantly. Visibility is poor, sound travels unpredictably, and predators dominate every layer of the ecosystem. Among them, the Bengal tiger is the undisputed apex hunter. Unlike most tigers, Sundarbans tigers are adapted to brackish water and dense mangrove terrain. They swim regularly, navigate narrow channels, and hunt humans more frequently than any other tiger population in the world. This behavior developed not from aggression but from environmental necessity. The incident occurred during a routine resource collection expedition. Local workers entered the forest under permit accompanied by minimal safety equipment. Masks depicting human faces were worn on the backs of their heads, a long-standing deterrent method believed to reduce surprise attacks. Recent studies have shown this method is unreliable. The forest was silent except for insect activity and distant water movement. The victim was positioned near a narrow clearing, cutting wood close to a tidal channel. Footprints later revealed the tiger had been tracking from downwind, using the mangroves to mask its movement. The attack happened without warning. There was no sound, no visible approach. The tiger lunged from dense foliage, targeting the neck and upper spine. This is a kill strategy refined over generations. The force alone was enough to incapacitate instantly. Witnesses reported seeing the tiger drag the body into the mangroves within seconds. Rescue attempts were impossible. Entering the forest at speed increases casualties, and tigers in the Sundarbans are known to defend kills aggressively. Search operations began the following day with armed forest guards. The terrain slowed progress to meters per hour. Evidence found included disturbed vegetation, drag marks, and partial remains consistent with tiger predation. The attack site was permanently closed afterward. Another case from the same region involved a fisherman whose boat drifted into restricted waters during low tide. He disembarked briefly to push the vessel free. Tigers frequently patrol these banks, anticipating exactly this behavior. The tiger emerged from behind a mangrove cluster and struck before the individual could retreat. The boat was found intact. The victim was never recovered. Researchers studying Sundarbans tigers note several key differences from inland populations. These tigers hunt during daylight hours more often, tolerate human presence, and display reduced fear responses. Hunger, habitat loss, and competition force adaptation. Fatal encounters peak during certain tidal cycles when prey movement increases and humans become more exposed. Even experienced locals are vulnerable. Knowledge reduces risk but does not eliminate it. The Sundarbans remains one of the few places where humans are not dominant. Entry is tolerated, not accepted. The forest operates on rules older than civilization, and the tiger enforces them without hesitation. In this environment, survival depends on constant awareness. One lapse is enough. The mangroves do not forgive mistakes, and the tiger does not miss. Story 6. Australia. Saltwater crocodile attack in the Northern Territory. Northern Australia contains some of the most hostile natural environments on the planet. Vast floodplains, slow-moving rivers, and tidal estuaries dominate the landscape. In these waters lives the saltwater crocodile, the largest living reptile and one of the most efficient ambush predators ever documented. Saltwater crocodiles are not territorial in the traditional sense. They dominate entire river systems, silently controlling movement corridors used by prey and humans alike. Attacks are rarely defensive, they are calculated predatory events. The incident occurred near a remote river crossing frequently used by local workers and tourists. Warning signs were present, but the crossing remained active due to limited infrastructure. The water appeared calm. Visibility was poor due to sediment and tidal influence. The victim entered the water briefly to assess depth before guiding a vehicle across. This behavior is common and extremely dangerous. Crocodiles detect vibration through specialized sensory organs along their jaws and body. The moment the water was disturbed, the crocodile responded. Witnesses reported a sudden violent eruption at the water's surface. The crocodile launched vertically, clamping onto the victim's torso. The bite force exceeded several thousand pounds per square inch, instantly crushing bone and causing catastrophic injury. The animal executed a death roll, a maneuver designed to dismember prey. The victim was pulled underwater within seconds. No vocalization was heard. Attacks are silent by nature. Search efforts began immediately but were delayed by tidal changes and crocodile activity. The river system was known to house multiple large individuals. Recovery operations required armed wildlife officers and aerial surveillance. Remains were located several kilometers downstream days later. Analysis confirmed predation consistent with large adult saltwater crocodile behavior. The animal was never captured. Another documented case occurred during a recreational fishing trip in the same region. The group had been camping near the riverbank for several days without incident. Familiarity bred complacency. At night, one individual approached the water's edge to clean fish remains. This action created scent cues detectable from significant distances. Crocodiles are opportunistic and learn patterns rapidly. The attack occurred in darkness. The crocodile surged from shallow water, seizing the individual by the leg. Drag marks showed a violent struggle before submersion. The campsite was abandoned immediately after. Experts emphasize that saltwater crocodiles do not hunt out of hunger alone. They eliminate perceived competition and exploit predictable behavior. Humans near water represent both. Crocodiles can remain motionless for hours, sometimes days, waiting for the exact moment to strike. They require no chase. Success depends on surprise. In northern Australia, crocodile populations have rebounded due to protection laws. While conservation efforts are successful, human fatalities have increased in parallel. Coexistence remains fragile. These rivers belong to the crocodiles. Entry is a calculated risk. The water does not warn and the predator does not hesitate. Once a crocodile commits to an attack, survival odds drop dramatically. There is no negotiation, no escape window, only force applied with absolute precision. In these environments, the water's surface is deceptive. Calmness is not safety, it is concealment. Story 7. India. Leopard attacks in Maharashtra villages. In large parts of western India, human settlements and wilderness are no longer clearly separated. Villages press against forest edges, farmland replaces natural corridors, and predators are forced to adapt. Among the most adaptable is the leopard. Unlike tigers, leopards thrive near humans. They move silently through sugarcane fields, dry riverbeds, and abandoned structures. Their ability to live unseen makes them far more dangerous than larger predators. The incidents in Maharashtra followed a familiar pattern. Rapid urban expansion pushed villages deeper into traditional leopard territory. Livestock grazing zones overlapped with hunting paths. The forest no longer ended where people believed it did. One early attack involved a farm worker returning home before sunrise. The path crossed a narrow strip of vegetation separating fields from a wooded hillside. Visibility was poor. The leopard had been observed in the area days earlier, but no action was taken. Leopards hunt by stalking from behind. They target the neck and upper spine, aiming to incapacitate instantly. The attack lasted seconds. The victim was dragged into tall crops before nearby workers realized what had happened. Rescue teams later found signs of a struggle and deep claw marks on the ground. The leopard had attempted to cache the body, a behavior common when prey is too large to consume immediately. Another case occurred inside a village itself. A leopard entered a residential area during daylight hours, likely disoriented after being chased from nearby farmland. Panic spread rapidly. Crowds formed. Noise increased. This response worsened the situation. Leopards interpret chaos as threat. The animal attempted to escape but became trapped between buildings. When cornered, it attacked defensively, injuring multiple people in quick succession. Emergency responders arrived late. The leopard eventually retreated into a drainage system connecting back to forest land. It was not captured. In rural Maharashtra, attacks are often linked to livestock kills. Leopards follow goats and dogs into villages. Dogs in particular resemble natural prey and act as attractants. One fatal incident involved a child sleeping near an open doorway during summer heat. The leopard entered silently, lifted the child, and exited without waking other family members. There were no screams, no warning. Search teams tracked the animal using paw prints leading toward nearby hills. The leopard was eventually tranquilized days later after multiple sightings. Examination revealed it was a healthy adult, not injured or starving. Experts note that most leopard attacks are not acts of aggression but outcomes of overlapping space. Leopards do not see villages as foreign. They see them as part of their range. Leopards are capable of scaling walls, entering rooftops, and navigating urban obstacles effortlessly. Their adaptability makes prevention difficult. Barriers that stop other animals mean nothing to them. In Maharashtra alone, dozens of attacks are recorded annually. Many more go unreported. Survivors often describe the same sensation. No sound, no warning, only sudden weight and pressure. Leopards rely on surprise. When humans lose awareness of their presence, attacks increase. Relocation efforts often fail. Leopards released into new areas attempt to return or create new conflict zones. The problem is systemic, not individual. As villages continue expanding, encounters become inevitable. The leopard does not retreat. It adjusts. In these regions, danger does not come from deep forest interiors. It walks along village paths, waits in fields, and moves through backyards unnoticed. The absence of sound is the final warning. By the time it is felt, the encounter is already over. Story 8. Australia. Saltwater crocodile attacks in Northern Territory. Northern Australia is home to the largest living reptile on Earth. Saltwater crocodiles dominate rivers, estuaries, and floodplains across the Northern Territory. They are not relics of the past. They are active, expanding, and increasingly present near human activity. For decades, crocodile populations were heavily reduced. Protection laws reversed that trend. Numbers grew rapidly. With growth came overlap. Many attacks occurred in areas officially labeled as safe: boat ramps, fishing banks, shallow crossings. Warning signs existed, but familiarity bred complacency. One of the most documented cases involved a man fishing alone near a remote river system. The water appeared calm, no visible movement. Saltwater crocodiles often remain fully submerged, with only eyes and nostrils exposed, blending perfectly with reflections. The attack was instantaneous. Witnesses later described a sudden explosion of water and silence immediately afterward. There was no struggle visible on the surface. Crocodiles kill by dragging prey underwater and initiating a death roll. Recovery teams found drag marks and disturbed sediment. The body was recovered days later downstream. The crocodile responsible was never located. Another fatal incident occurred at a popular swimming hole. Locals had used it for years without incident. Recent flooding altered water levels and connected the area to a larger river system. Crocodiles use floods to expand territory. What was once isolated becomes accessible. The animal entered unnoticed. A woman swimming near the bank was seized mid-stroke. The attack happened close to shore, contradicting assumptions that staying shallow was safe. Crocodiles can launch with immense speed even in minimal depth. Attempts to intervene failed. The crocodile submerged and disappeared. The water returned to stillness. In the Northern Territory, crocodile attacks are rarely loud. There is no prolonged chaos. The animal's strength eliminates resistance quickly. Indigenous communities have long understood crocodile behavior. Traditional knowledge emphasizes avoidance rather than confrontation. Modern infrastructure often ignores these principles. One case involved a vehicle crossing a flooded road. The driver exited to assess water depth. Crocodiles are attracted to vibration and movement. The attack occurred within seconds. Crocodiles do not hunt out of hunger alone. They are territorial and opportunistic. Any intrusion into water they control is treated as prey or threat. Post-incident analysis often reveals the same factors: recent rainfall, altered water routes, reduced visibility, and human assumption of safety. Crocodiles can remain motionless for hours. They ambush with explosive force. Their bite pressure exceeds that of any living animal. In many cases, crocodiles responsible for attacks are not removed. The ecosystem is vast. Identification is difficult. Removal can disrupt territorial balance and cause new animals to move in. As tourism increases in northern Australia, risk increases alongside it. Warning signs become background noise. Familiarity overrides caution. The most dangerous belief is that an area is safe because nothing has happened there before. Saltwater crocodiles do not migrate randomly. They expand logically following water, prey, and opportunity. In these regions, danger does not announce itself. It waits beneath the surface, perfectly adapted, perfectly patient. The water does not change color, the surface does not ripple. The absence of warning is the rule. By the time the attack begins, survival is already unlikely.